dogma is thought to be dogmatic, then morality is thought to be moralistic. And being a Christian is often seen in terms of submission to the church's rules, beginning with the Ten Commandments. Though I have great sympathy with Bertrand Russell, who said that the Ten Commandments should be approached like an exam paper, an examination paper. No candidate should attempt more than 6. So the church is usually seen as telling us what's forbidden and what's compulsory. The church is seen as an island of control in a free society. Why should men with silly pointed hats tell me what to do? Secularists in England have a bus campaign now, and adverts on buses, which says, God probably does not exist. Now stop worrying and enjoy yourself. That's rejecting the idea of God as the big policeman in the sky. But I would want to maintain that this is a profoundly misleading understanding of the nature of Christian ethics. Charles Taylor, a Canadian, greatest historian of ideas alive today, he's argued that it was precisely the 18th century Enlightenment that was obsessed with control. That in the Middle Ages you had a society where there was check and balance. Nobody tried to obtain complete power. It is with the Enlightenment you see the evolution of absolute state, of monarchs like Henry VIII, who claimed control over every aspect of national life. You see the multiplication of legislation. Incidentally, in the last 10 years in England, we've had 3,000 new offences added to the statute book, criminal offences. You see the locking up of the poor, who are seen as a menace, the imprisonment of the mentally ill, a massive explosion of slavery. I think the strong evolution of slavery in Enlightenment times shows you just what a culture of control it was. I just come from Australia. That's where we used to export the people that we didn't want to live with. So, and it goes, I don't know whether in the United States, but this vast concern with health and safety. There was a little book published the other day in England children's book, called Who Wants a Dragon? It was all about a nice little cuddly pink dragon who toasted his marshmallows with his fiery breath. I'm afraid the publisher said that it had to be rewritten because fire-breathing dragons are against health and safety. Now, it's true that the churches tend to be addicted to the culture of control as well, particularly, mea culpa, our own beloved Catholic Church. But they should be oases of freedom in a secular culture of control. You see, traditionally, from St. Paul to Thomas Aquinas and beyond, ethics was not about what you're allowed or forbidden to do. It was about who you are called to be. It's our growth in virtue, so that we become people who are just and truthful and courageous and prudent. We become people whose happiness and freedom is in God. We've had all these scandals in England with MPs claiming their expenses, claiming ridiculous expenses for cleaning their moats and building duck houses. I don't know whether you've read all about it in this country. Rather absurd. And every time they say, I didn't do anything wrong, I didn't break the rules. ultimately that's an infantile understanding of morality. What virtue offers is the way to become someone who is honorable and truthful and just. Of course, we need the rules at a primitive stage. We need the rules to remind us who we are, not as external constraints on our behavior. The 10 Commandments for the Jews were not 10 instruments of external control. They were 10 words of God inviting them into friendship. The chief rabbi told me, just before I left for Australia, in Hebrew there isn't even a word for to obey. The word doesn't exist in Hebrew. When the State of Israel was established in 1949, and they had to find a word which meant, in our modern sense, obey, they had to take a word from Aramaic. The 10 Commandments were invitations to enter a relationship with God, to be friends with Him. Thinking of the 10 Commandments a bit irrelevantly, I'm reminded of the Polish Dominican chaplain before the Battle of Monte Cassino. And the night before the battle, he opened the tent doors and he saw thousands of Polish soldiers who wanted to come to confession. What was he to do? This was before general absolution had been invented, let alone forbidden. So he made them all lie down on the ground. He said, "Oh, everybody lie down on the ground where you can't see each other." And he said, "I'm going to go through the commandments. If you've disobeyed one, waggle your left foot and with your right foot indicate how many times." We do need the rules sometimes, but to remind us of who we are. As a young friar who's just moved into the room beside me, called Greg, wonderful young guy, 23 years old, but with a terrible habit of slamming his door. And there are times when I think I could murder him. And then I remember, "Thou shalt not kill." Now the point isn't that I say, "Oh dear, what a pity, I would like to kill him, but alas, I'm not allowed to." The commandment reminds me of who I am, which is his brother, which means that I don't want to kill him much. So what virtue ethics does is it teaches you to be somebody. To be somebody who spontaneously, freely loves God and does what is right. St. Augustine said, "Love and do what you want." But virtue teaches you to love well. Let's just think for a moment of sexual ethics. It's not that sexual ethics are actually very important. I don't think they are. I think the media likes to present Christianity as obsessed with sex, since that's a way of pushing us into a harmless little siding where we can be ignored. Herbert McCabe wrote, "As long as Christian morality is thought to be mainly about whether and when people should go to bed, no bishops are going to be crucified." And that, he said, is depressing. Not, I'm sure, that you want to crucify your bishop here. Sexual ethics, they are very interesting because they're symptomatic of how we find that way between retreating into the ghetto and being assimilated into society. Now, statistics in England show that most Christians actually conform largely to the sexual practices of our contemporaries. Most Christians in England divorce and remarry just as much as everybody else, practice contraception,